Hello and welcome to the Hero Spouse. I'm Kenda Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward-moving spouse with a bomb drop of January 31st, 2023, a date of marriage of 2011. She has an at-home MLCer who is a low-energy wallower. Previously, she had listed her date as January 31st, 2022, so it is 2023 as a correction. She says, there's a couple of questions here. So I'm going to go with the first piece, and then we'll get to the bigger piece, which is what I've used as the title in this. She says, it's been 5 years since I realized he was acting weird. Notice bomb drop is not quite a year out, but 5 years she's noticed him acting weird. He's been cake eating or trying to, but he never left home, and he's never attempted to leave home. Can it get worse? How and what should I expect? So that's the basic question right there. We have an at-home MLCer. He's been acting weird for 5 years, but bomb drop was a year ago. Can it get worse? Yes. So right now, I don't know how acting weird was. I am going to base that bomb drop just not quite a year ago. And the answer is yes, because MLC gets worse before it gets better. And you haven't even hit the worst part yet. It feels worse in the beginning because we're shocked and traumatized by all that's happened in the sudden changes, or at least what are often sudden changes. You might not have experienced that if you've noticed him acting weird for 5 years. So he may leave. What to expect? He may simply get more angry. He may blame you more. It's just that it gets worse, and we have an expectation that, oh, they're going to come out of this sometime. Not yet. They start to go downhill. Then they get to a point where oh my, it's going to get better now because they have what we think of as an awakening. Things seem better. That awakening is when they realize the destruction they have made. And you're like, oh, finally. But imagine that you just committed a horrible, horrible act. Just happened. What do you want to do next? Do you want to face the music, or do you want to run? Do you feel really guilty? Let's say you were drinking and driving and you just ran into a crowd. You drove right into a crowd. Now, you might be forced to not run because they trap you. But what do you want to do emotionally? Are you afraid? Are you so ashamed of yourself that you have to find some way of why I've done this? When you have that first piece of the awakening of the realization of what you've done, the instinct is not, everything is better now because I've woken up from this crisis and now I know who I am and all this. No, that's not the awakening. The awakening is realization of the destruction. That is my fault. In other words, realization of all the bad stuff I've done. Maybe then, if I've done bad, I am bad. Hide, 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 hide. The awakening precedes liminality, the stage that Jim Conway called depression. The awakening, that awakening, is what triggers or pushes or motivates them into that depression. It is what sends them falling down. I think of it as a giant chasm. They fall down to the bottom. And you can call that rock bottom if you want to. They still can get drills. So that's the other thing. It can get worse because they get a drill out and go deeper. Maybe if they don't have a drill, they'll get a spoon. They will get anything they can. And they will try it. They will try to escape they will try to escape liminality by climbing out, back to escape and avoid, back to it. That's what escape and avoid is. They are escaping and avoiding liminality. So that is why it gets better. Hold on a second. Now, the next part. She says, when bomb drop happened, I was doing IVF because there's a problem with his sperm. She says, I stopped for a few months, but now the doctors are pushing me to continue because I turned 41 this year, and this could be my last chance. I get that. I get it. I don't know what to do, since I can't seem to count on him, and parenting is for two people. You're right. You're right. And you're right. It's for two. People do it singly, but if you have two, you should have two. And you can't count on him right now. He says he wants me to do it, but clearly shows no interest in the process. I'm not so interested that he's not interested in the process as that he's not going to be able to be counted on after the process at any point. I'm afraid it makes everything worse, but I want to be a mom. He's been cake eating, or trying to, ever since bomb drop, and he has such a temper, I don't know what to do. Okay, so let me just back up for a minute. I was 32 and a half at bomb drop. Chuck was 39 and a half when we didn't have children. In fact, that was his reasoning. He's like, I don't want kids anymore. Anyone who knows my story knows I have 5 kids, and they're his too. Okay. And know more of my story, you know they're adopted. We later learned, after he'd come home, that I was infertile. The first thing I did, though, didn't know I was probably becoming more infertile at bomb drop if I wasn't already, knowing now the level of infertility I had. But we don't know anything about that at bomb drop. The first thing I did was go out and look up infertility or fertility after age 35. Because the first thing at bomb drop, I got the idea is something serious is happening. This is going to take a long time. So I want to know what that's about. We had already been planning family, and we just were waiting until I'd been at my job a little longer. Or I had a job that wasn't going to be ending, because I kept getting project jobs. Oh, this is a 2-year project. This is that sort of thing. So we just kept putting it off. And now, what should I have done? I did make a plan. I said, if I get to 39, then I'll look into IVF, that sort of thing. And he was home before that. But I was infertile. And we talked about the IVF option. We talked about donor egg options, because the doctor said I probably didn't have that. And we talked about the adoptive options. And as I've already said, we have 5 adopted children, so we took that route, and we went to foster care and adopted our children that way. So I say all of that first thing because this was my situation, the sense of no kids, wanting kids, bomb drop, and I was younger than you. So yeah, sure, the clock was ticking. Yours is louder, because I know what it is now to have a child at 40, 41, and the last one, I was almost 45. I love my babies. I really wish I were 10 years younger, though. I just wish I had that youth. And you don't get it back. So there's nothing you can do about, I'm 41 and I don't have kids yet. But I do want you to have backup plans. I want you to have backup plans for yourself. What are you going to do? Because first thing, he's in a crisis. Let's say. And I don't want you to go with, it's been 5 years since you realized he was acting weird. Bomb drop was less than a year ago. He wants you to have IVF. That means to me that he's not saying, hey, you should go for it. You'd be a great mom. In other words, this is your thing, and you're going to be a mom. He's not being a part of it. It sounds more like he's like, oh yeah, we can do this. And then he doesn't know what it means. He does not getting it. Maybe he's feeling guilty because he knows you want it. No, it's not. You don't know what to do. It's because if the answer for having children, for bringing children into this world isn't a resounding absolute yes, the answer is no. You're not. It's not that you personally aren't ready for that, but the situation is not ready for that. And for a standard midlife crisis, he's not going to be at a place where he's ready for that for a long time. So I had to make a decision. I had to make a decision of cut my losses or stand for my marriage. And if I was standing for my marriage, I was choosing Chuck over having kids. And with the risk, or with betting on that, we can have them together. But if it's too late, it's too late. And Chuck used the excuse, I don't want kids now. I knew that wasn't real. I knew it was an excuse. I could tell. But what if? Or what if we waited too long? Or what if I was infertile? Oh, hello. So I had to make a choice. Choosing to stand for my marriage might mean I don't ever get to be a mom. So that's the first choice you need to make. You make a choice. Sorry, it's an ultimatum for you. Between your husband and whether you're going to have children. Say, and the choice can be he comes home later and he's there for them. But the choice can be, you know what? I'm going to have kids. Now, with the IVF, that has me concerned in the sense that when I was saying I'm making a choice not to have them, I wasn't planning on having them. So that means a stopping of the IVF. Do you want to freeze your eggs? That would be the question I would be asking. That would be what I think your doctors would be pushing you to do. Because that's something you can do. Not everybody is open to the avenues that Chuck and I took. Some people are open to adoption without going foster because of the risks involved in foster. But the financial benefits are there. Not just in that we didn't pay 10, 25, 50,000 for a child. We have 5, that would have cost a lot. We also got paid and continue to get paid for them. There are children, but we, after you adopt, you get what's called adoption support, which helps. It's not a lot, but it still helps with money set aside for therapies and that sort of thing. It's for that purpose, if they're going to have special needs. And oftentimes kids raised in the system are just considered special needs due to that history. So we still have support that we get until they're 18 or out of high school if they're still 18 in high school. That's something we can count on. But not everybody wants to take the risk of, because you don't necessarily get to keep the foster children. There's a lot of heartache. What are the children going to have gone through? You're going to go through family visits. Some people just know I can only have a child who is of my own blood. So you have to figure out what you're going to do. First, it's not even about what you rather, but what are you willing to? Are you going to choose him over ever having children? And then let's say you do. Now you may still have children, but you don't know when. And you're 9 years older than I was. Okay, so that needs to be a factor. The next thing that I did with my plan was I put it in, okay, if he is not home by this time, then I just have to start on this becoming a parent on my own, single. So that's where you freeze your eggs, or if you're able to still get IVF, but probably not, or you look at adoption. You look at fostering to adoption. And different foster systems will treat that idea of foster to adopt differently. Some say, oh yeah, this could be foster to adopt. They know that these children are going back to their parents someday, or the odds are more for that. Some, they don't. It just depends on the system and what they tell you and how desperate they are, how honest they are. Ours, they gave us our first child. They didn't have a family in the system, but he was born drug. And they felt he was probably going to be adopted out to us. But they didn't. The parents didn't have a history of having lost children. The next one, however, when we got him, there was already a termination paper filed. So that was really good. And the sibling group after that one, tons of family members were in the system also. So not that those are bad or good, but if you're a foster parent that's not foster to adopt versus adopt, give the ones that you think, this kid, I want to give him to a family who is meaning to adopt so that they don't go hopping. But you don't know what they're going to do. So You have a big decision to make right there. I chose Chuck. And I got the blessings because he came home, and then we got to have kids too. But that might not happen to you. You might choose him and he comes home and you don't get kids. Or you might choose him, he doesn't come home, and it's too late. You don't feel you can do it on your own, you don't have kids. Or he doesn't come home and you take the jump and you're a single mom. But you could meet somebody in there. But putting that scenario out, and that somebody wants kids with you also, you take the leap and you become a single mom. It's a really hard decision to make. Right now, here's the one I want. I can't make the decision for you about continuing with IVF, but I'm going to recommend that you not try to get pregnant now. That's why I said freeze it. That's the one thing that I made sure not to do. I mean, yeah, I was like, oh, what would happen if I got pregnant now? And there were a couple, issues. It was like in the first beginning, I was just probably cycling weird because of the trauma. But I'm late. What's going on? Am I pregnant? What would that have done to my stand? To bring, not just make it difficult. Chuck may have come home prematurely, leave again 10 years later for a bit worse crisis, but also bringing a child into the trauma that was going on. All of that. Because that's what you're looking at right now. You get IVF and it works this time. 9 months later, you have a baby, and he is not going to be ready. He might come home for a while, be ready, and 10 years later, worse crisis. For a while, if he gets yanked out, they go back in. And when I say yanked out, I don't mean they go back in 6 months later. That's the same crisis. I mean, you think everything is fine. And 10 years later, bam, back in, worse crisis. Either he just doesn't come out of the crisis right now, and he just stays in it, irresponsible. So, the one thing, just my advice, you choose what is best for you. Just don't get pregnant right now. Unless you cut him off completely and you're like, this isn't your baby. You have no responsibilities for it. I'm going to be a single parent. And then whether you stop standing or not, I don't know. But that needs to be it. You need to be as a single parent. So I don't recommend that you get pregnant now. If you want to reconcile your marriage. Okay? I know this is a really difficult decision for you to make. I had to make it too. I hope it's helpful though. And I will see everybody in the next question.